Wendy Williams' life took another shocking turn. She was suddenly rushed from the facility she had compared to a prison in New York City to Lenox Hill Hospital. Everything happened so fast that no one saw it coming. She had been living in a place she desperately wanted to escape from, but it wasn't that simple. You won't believe this, but the way it all unfolded was completely unexpected. Around 11:15 a.m., an ambulance was called and she was taken away. But here's the real question. Who made this decision? Did Wendy ask for help herself, or was this done by someone else? Let me tell you, this is where it gets even more complicated. It seemed like just another day, but then something happened that shocked everyone. Wendy dropped a handwritten note from her fifth-story window, just 2 words, "Help Wendy." This wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a desperate cry for help. As soon as the paparazzi below saw it, they rushed to pick it up and read it. This is where it gets interesting. What could have pushed a woman, once one of the most powerful names in daytime television, to literally throw a plea for help out of her window? Was she being silenced? Was there something more happening behind those closed doors? According to close family sources, this moment was what they had been waiting for, a chance to finally rescue Wendy. They saw this emergency as a turning point, a moment that could finally bring it into the nightmare she had been living in. But what makes this story different? It wasn't her legal guardian who arranged this hospital visit. It was someone else. A caregiver, not associated with her guardianship, stepped in and took action. But why now? What had changed? Did this caregiver see something disturbing? The craziest part is that Wendy had been struggling behind closed doors for so long that even her family had limited access to her. She had given a phone interview just last month where she broke down in tears, pressing her hand against the window of her room as she described her living situation. During that interview, she admitted she had been allowed outside only twice in 30 days. Twice! Imagine being locked away like that, unable to go outside, unable to contact your loved ones. But here is the shocking part. She didn't even have internet access or a phone. Her interview was recorded in the most unusual way possible. Since no cameras were allowed inside, the only way to communicate with her was by filming from the sidewalk outside while she spoke from her window. That's how isolated she was. Wendy revealed that she didn't eat meals with the other residents because, as she put it, it's just so goddamn depressing. She said her life over the past year had been nothing but loneliness and isolation. Destiny took an unexpected turn. And now, with this hospital visit, things were about to change. But would this truly be her way out? Or was there still another battle ahead? As Wendy was rushed to the hospital, the world started asking, was this finally her escape? Or was it just another chapter in her ongoing struggle? Her family saw it as a moment of hope, but there were still so many unanswered questions. How had things gotten this bad? And most importantly, who was really in control of Wendy Williams' life? This is how things took a darker turn. Wendy had been living under a strict guardianship since 2022, a legal arrangement that controlled her finances, decisions, and even her personal life. It was meant to protect her, but instead, it had left her trapped in isolation. In her emotional phone interview last month, she revealed just how limited her freedom was. She wasn't even allowed to make a simple phone call to her family or friends. Imagine that. A woman who once had millions of fans tuning in to hear her voice, now stripped of her own voice. But here is the shocking part. Wendy had been asking for her phone back for years, yet her guardian continued to deny her even that basic right. Her living situation was nothing short of disturbing. Wendy described the place as full of old people who were in their 80s and 90s. She had been forced to eat her meals alone in her room, away from the other residents. But the craziest part, she had to buy her own TV. The guardian, who was supposed to take care of her, didn't even provide her with a simple television. Wendy had to purchase it herself, using money that she wasn't even allowed to manage. Think about that. She had millions in her bank account, yet she couldn't even spend her own money without permission. This is where it gets interesting. Why was Wendy being kept in such extreme isolation? If the guardianship was meant to help her, why did it feel more like a prison sentence? Even her closest friends were not allowed to visit her. In that heartbreaking interview, Wendy openly asked, "What is the problem with me calling and talking to my friends? Why can't they come in here?" She was confused, frustrated, and, above all, desperate for answers. But now, things were about to change. Wendy had made a bold move last month. She officially asked the court to end her guardianship. In a legal affidavit, she stated that she was mentally capable of managing her own life and that she no longer needed a guardian. This was a huge step. But the real question was, would the court listen to her? Or would they continue to believe the doctors who diagnosed her with frontotemporal dementia? This is where the fight truly began. Wendy claimed she didn't have dementia despite what had been said about her, and now her entire future depended on one medical evaluation. If the results showed she was fine, she could finally regain her freedom. But if they didn't, she could remain trapped under guardianship for the rest of her life. Now, all eyes were on what would happen next. Would Wendy finally prove she was capable, or was she about to face another devastating setback? As Wendy lay in the hospital, waiting for the crucial cognitive evaluation, the tension around her case grew even stronger. This test wasn't just a routine checkup, it was the key to her freedom. If doctors confirmed that she didn't have frontotemporal dementia, then her guardianship could finally come to an end. But if the results suggested otherwise, she would remain under strict control, unable to make even the simplest decisions for herself. This was a fight for her life. But here is the shocking part. Wendy wasn't just dealing with medical professionals. Her legal team was preparing for a major court battle. Just days before her hospitalization, her new attorney had started working on an emergency order to force the judge to reconsider her guardianship. This was the first real legal push to free Wendy in years. Why now? What had changed? Was it Wendy's growing frustration? Or had someone behind the scenes finally realized how unfair this arrangement was? This is where it gets interesting. Who really benefited from keeping Wendy under guardianship? Over the past 2 years, she had lost control of her career, her finances, and even her personal relationships. The Wendy Williams Show, which had once made her one of the most powerful women in entertainment, was gone. Her bank accounts were locked. She had to ask for permission just to spend her own money. And even worse, many of the people she once trusted had completely disappeared. The craziest part, Wendy had no idea what was happening with her finances. According to reports, her guardian was in charge of everything, from paying her bills to deciding how much money she was allowed to access. Imagine being a millionaire, but needing someone's permission to buy a simple cup of coffee. How did this happen to Wendy Williams, a woman who built an empire from nothing, who fought her way to the top, now trapped in a system where she had zero control? But destiny took an unexpected turn. Wendy was no longer staying silent. She had signed a legal document stating she was capable of making her own decisions. She was ready to fight. But here was the biggest obstacle: convincing the court that she was not mentally impaired. That was the real battle. The moment the diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia had been placed on her, it became nearly impossible for her to prove otherwise. This is how guardianships work. They are designed to protect people who genuinely can't take care of themselves. But sometimes they are used as a tool for control. And Wendy wasn't the only celebrity to experience this. Remember Britney Spears? She had spent 13 years under a conservatorship before finally breaking free. Could Wendy be facing a similar situation, or was there truly a medical reason behind all of this? Now, the entire world was watching. The next 24 hours would determine everything. Would Wendy finally regain control over her life? Or would she be forced to stay in this nightmare, locked away from the world, perhaps forever? As Wendy's fate hung in the balance, The final hours before her evaluation were filled with uncertainty, fear, and hope. The entire world was waiting to see what the doctors would say. Was she truly capable of managing her life, or was she still considered unfit? This wasn't just about one test. This was about her entire future. If the evaluation went in her favor, she could finally break free from the guardianship that had controlled her for so long. But if it didn't, she might never get another chance. But here's the craziest part. Wendy had already made up her mind. No matter what the test results said, she was going to fight back. She had spent too long locked away, too long without control over her own life. She had spoken her truth, exposed her isolation, and now she was ready for war. Her new legal team had already planned their next move. They were preparing to file an emergency request to challenge the guardianship in court immediately after the medical results came in. This meant that no matter what, Wendy wasn't going down without a fight. But destiny took an unexpected turn. Rumors started to spread. Some sources claimed that certain people didn't want Wendy to regain her freedom. After all, keeping her under guardianship meant keeping control of her money, her estate, and her decisions. Could it be possible that some people were working against her? Could they try to influence the test results? Let me tell you, this wasn't just about Wendy anymore. This was about a system that had kept powerful women under control for decades. Britney Spears, Amanda Bynes, and now Wendy Williams. Was this another case of a celebrity being silenced? And here is the shocking part. Wendy wasn't giving up. She had already suffered years of isolation, confusion, and helplessness, but she still had one thing left: her voice. And this time, she was using it. With the world watching, the pressure on the court was growing stronger. Fans, family, and supporters were all demanding one thing: justice for Wendy. So now only one question remained. Would Wendy finally win her freedom? Or was this just another battle in a war that was far from over?